Hey everybody, it's Raphael from XX Raphael Productions, back with another Flash video for you guys, and with Season 7 being concluded, I'm going to make this video about why Seasons 1 and 2 are still the best seasons of the entire show. And yes, that includes even with Season 7 being wrapped up. On this video, I'm going to be going over what the show used to do well in the earlier seasons, and what it's not doing well in the later seasons, and I'm going to split this review into a couple sections, so if you guys want to skip over to a particular reason, each timestamp is in the description below. But yeah, let's get right to this video, and I'm going to be talking about why Seasons 1 and 2 are still the best seasons of the entire show, so let's get right to it. Alright, so let's get into the first part of this video, and this honestly might be the most important part, alright, and it comes to the writing of the show. So don't get me wrong here, I'm gonna go ahead and emphasize this real quick before I begin. Even if Seasons 1 and 2 were definitely far superior to 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, which were much worse for sure, this show has really been always carried by the actors, the villains, and the chemistry between our main cast. When it came to the plot or the writing, that has never really been this show's strongest point. So don't get me mistaken when I say that even though the writing was superior in the first two seasons, it was still never really flawless, and I will expand on that right now. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and summarize the first 3 seasons of the show. Season 1, there is an evil speedster who is also an evil member of Team Flash. Episodic in nature with plenty of throwaway metahuman villains of the week, all contributing to Barry's growth of becoming faster. Meanwhile, we are building up to the mystery of the main villain's identity and are later on enlightened on his main goal at the end of the season. Bottom line here is main villain defeated, Barry at the end of the season has gotten much faster. Season 2, there is an evil speedster who is also an evil member of Team Flash. Episodic in nature with plenty of throwaway metahuman villain of the week, all contributing to Barry's growth of becoming faster. Meanwhile, we are building up to the mystery of the main villain's identity and are later on enlightened on his main goal at the end of the season. Now, Season 2 was still great, Zoom was a great character, and we were also introduced to the multiverse, which kind of expands the Arrowverse as well, so that's saying something. Bottom line, main villain defeated again, Barry at the end of the season has gotten much faster. Season 3, there is an evil speedster who is also an evil member of Team Flash. Episodic in nature with plenty of throwaway metahuman villains of the week, all contributing to Barry's growth of becoming faster. Meanwhile, we are building up to the mystery of the main villain's identity and are later on enlightened on his main goal at the end of the season, which is much more convoluted than the first 2 seasons. Anyways, the bottom line here, main villain defeated again, Barry gets much faster. Now, this is almost like the equivalent of, can I copy your homework and change a few things? Now, the problem here is not really the constant repetition, that's not the main thing that bothers me here. The main thing that bothers me here is the fact that it gets progressively worse at telling the story. Now, each season gets progressively worse than the previous season, and even though seasons 4 and 5 were actually quite different, that doesn't really mean they were quality television, but they were nonetheless definitely different than the first 3 seasons, so props on them for that, really. But even then, many of them actually agreed that the non-speedster villains were actually much worse, and I don't actually blame them for that. I myself was not a fan of Season 3, but if I knew back in 2017 how bad Season 7 was, I would have never really been too harsh on Season 3, because Season 3 was a lot more superior to the later seasons as well. So yes, on to Season 1 and 2 now. There were plenty of episodes in Season 1 and also in Season 2 where there are like times Barry is extremely fast, and also there are times where Barry is extremely slow, so it's kind of like whatever really furthers the plot, like that is how fast Barry gets. Like, I usually like to say that the speedsters on this show, they run at the speed of plot, so there's never really any consistency when it comes to the speed and also Barry's like intellect, because this is especially worse in the later seasons, but it's also evident in the earlier seasons as well. Now, do you know the reason why I kind of excuse this in the earlier seasons? That is because this never really was too much of a problem until later on, when Barry is supposed to be a veteran hero at that point. I could excuse it in the earlier seasons where Barry's kind of more new to his powers. So even though there are questionable moments like Barry being like dumb in some episodes, for lack of a better word, at least we could excuse that by saying it's part of Barry's growth as a hero. He is going to like become a veteran hero in the future and not make these same mistakes later on. And I couldn't have been more wrong when it comes to this, by the way, but this is how I would have justified the earlier seasons in that regard, where it's all part of Barry's growth into becoming faster and becoming the veteran hero that Eobard Thawne was referring to when it came to his epic rivalry with Barry Allen in the future. Now, that also, I guess, made sense as well when you kind of look at Barry's personality. He's kind of goofy in the earlier seasons, so I guess it's kind of like he's more of a happy-go-lucky type of character, and him making mistakes or being clumsy is part of his personality and character, and that explains why he might have made some questionable decisions in the earlier seasons. So I never really hated the season despite all that, because it kind of made sense within Barry's character. Now, that does not apply to the later seasons, like seasons 3, 4, and 5, where he's supposed to be a lot more experienced and a lot more of a veteran at that point, where he's still making the same mistakes anyway. So it's kind of just like, where is the character growth at that point? Like, it kind of feels like Barry is remaining stagnant in the later seasons. Now, that could have been excused in the earlier seasons since he was still very new to his powers, and even if the writing was downright horrendous, this show used to do well in many other aspects, like the character chemistry between them. It's been a lot more downplayed in the later seasons, therefore leading to the show becoming a lot more unenjoyable to watch. So it's like they're missing that certain type of charm in the earlier seasons that made it much more enjoyable to watch. But yeah, nonetheless, this gets worse though in season 3 when they kind of stretch out the villain reveal of Savitar all the way until episode 20. So at that time when most people were probably guessing it was future Barry, so it's kind of like, okay, so you all wasted like 5 extra episodes and you could have revealed it much earlier, and they could have spent all the time focusing on the future timeline that led future Barry to become evil, but no, they kind of stretched out the mystery for far too long, and then it kind of loses its impact afterwards. So good for you if you enjoyed the reveal. I personally thought it was way too much, and I was just glad that they got it over with rather than feeling any excitement for Savitar at that point. But yeah, so season 1 had Reverse Flash revealed early on, and season 2 had Zoom revealed in episode 15, so we still had we had 8 episodes left until the end of Zoom, so it was still not too late. Like, Savitar was revealed in episode 20, so we only had 3 episodes left of Savitar, so it wasn't really enough to explain Savitar's backstory. I know that future Barry explained that he was shunned, but this is more of a tell but not show situation, and the best rule is really show not tell, so they kind of did the opposite of that advice. So yeah, that's it for Savitar. It could have been done much better. It had plenty of potential, really. So yeah, season 4 now with DeVoe, the Thinker. So season 4 had one of the best first 9 episodes. We had DeVoe framing Barry up. We had Crisis on Earth X, and we had all the build up to a non-speedster villain being exciting. Unfortunately, this all goes downhill after Barry gets out of prison, because I actually liked the storyline here when they're trying to, prove Barry innocent, but then Barry just decides to accept the consequences and just go to jail. So that was pretty intriguing, but then it kind of feels like they don't know what to do next afterwards, and then discounting Enter Flash Time, because Enter Flash Time was actually one of the best episodes of not just the season, but the best episode of the show. One of the best episodes of the show was Enter Flash Time, so the only reason why I kind of discounted those is because it's more of a filler episode and it's not really related to the DeVoe plotline, so I don't really care too much about it, even if I want to rewatch it again. But yeah, so it's kind of like Season 4 had also a lot of potential, but then it kind of feels like they stumble in the middle, and at the end, they don't know, like, how to write the non-speedster villain as a credible threat, so they kind of have to make Team Flash act dumb to kind of give the villain an advantage. So that's kind of another reason why I think the writing went downhill, is because they had to stretch the filler episodes in order to fill in the 23 episode season. And as such, that also goes back to my previous point about Barry having to act dumb so that the plot can progress. And we'll get into that in the villain section as well, because there's going to be a lot of moments like this, alright? So, section 1 is over when it comes to the writing. Let's get right into section 2. Okay, so here we are with section 2 of this video, talking about the main villains for each respective season. This is something that's actually very important for the future season problems, because a lot of them lie with the main villain. So season 1, as you all know, had a fantastic villain with Reverse Flash, and while season 2 with Zoom had another speedster villain, it was still good enough because Zoom was a radically different villain compared to Reverse Flash, and was very powerful, intimidating, and scary in his own right. Like, what I mean by that is that Reverse Flash had a personal vendetta and hatred against Barry, but Zoom is pretty much what you would get if you had a serial killer and have him combined with super speed at the same time. So it's pretty much like an unstoppable monster, as Harry Wells described, running amok and destroying worlds. It's kind of like what made Zoom very interesting, despite him being the second speedster villain in a row. So that's why I think seasons 1 and 2 had the best villains, and it goes downhill in season 3 and onwards, with the main villains being less intimidating as time went on, alright? So let's go ahead and talk about these problems right now. So despite my ranting about Savitar in the previous section, I actually did think that his introduction was actually decent, because despite the fact that, you know, Barry's a speedster, there were many moments in early season 3 where the Savitar was moving so fast that even Barry was stationary, so that established Savitar as a far bigger threat than even Zoom and Reverse Flash. But then later on, I think they kind of wrote themselves into a corner that they made Savitar way too fast, so they kind of fixed this by saying that when Savitar escapes the Speed Force prison, that is when he gets drastically slower, and that is no more obvious than in season 3 episode 15, when Barry actually stood a chance, unlike the last, like, 2 times they fought, where he was instantly defeated, like, that easily. So I guess they did fix the power scaling a bit, but that also goes to show that that also goes to show that they kind of wrote themselves into a corner, that they had to do something like that, alright? So, yeah, I guess I could excuse that, though, because I guess you could just say that Savitar inside the Speed Force was cheating, so it's kind of like he had the extra advantage of teleporting in and out of the Speed Force, making him look extremely fast. So I can excuse that, though, but what I cannot excuse, though, is how they delayed the villain reveal for so long, and it kind of, it was actually a big detrimental moment of season 3, because that is what made many viewers at the time. I was watching this show in early, like, I was watching the show ever since it aired, so I know the reactions at the time. People were just begging for the Savitar reveal to finally happen already. It was like, people were saying it was dragged out, and I agree with that, honestly. Like, and then the worst part is that most people were already guessing it was future Barry, and then it's just like, there you go. Like, why did you have to waste our time doing this when you could have just revealed it earlier and then spent the rest of the episodes, like, focusing on Savitar's backstory, because 3 episodes is nowhere near what is needed to, like, showcase how Savitar became a deranged version of Barry Allen. That could have been a very interesting plot line that they never really expanded on, alright? So these are the kind of stuff I mean when I say season 3 was wasted potential. It had so many good opportunities and they just didn't really utilize it all. But anyway, now, so let's go ahead and move on to season 4 with DeVoe. And I already talked about the filler episodes, but still, since we're talking about specifically the villains, let's talk about DeVoe. So DeVoe the Thinker, they really, like, I know that when they made him switch bodies, that's not really the time that the villain fell off a cliff in regards to quality, because the original actor was the best version of DeVoe, like the old man, I forgot his name, but he was the best actor of DeVoe when he was still in his original body. And also the actor of Dominic Lance still did pretty decent, but then they kind of went overboard with the body switching, and that was really when his character suffered. I also did think that there were many times when DeVoe just became another overpowered villain, rather than the season being marketed as the speed thinking versus super speed. That was how season 4 was marketed to the viewers at the time. It was supposed to be the fastest man alive versus the fastest mind alive. And it kind of devolved, though, in the last few episodes to a typical, like overpowered villain versus the Flash. And they, even though he was still a credible threat, but they didn't really make DeVoe utilize all his, like, he had, like, what, 12 different meta-human abilities, and at the same time, he has his own natural ability, which is to speed things. So that kind of villain really should have been saved for a later season, because he was just way too powerful. And it was pretty obvious that in the season 4 finale, they had to nerf him because he was that strong. So yeah, that was another reason why DeVoe failed. But don't worry, because DeVoe was good for the first, 9 to 10 episodes when he was framing Barry up. That was like probably the best moments of season 4, was like the first couple episodes. And then Enter Flash Time was great, but then the rest of the season kind of unfortunately falls off a cliff. Now, the introduction of Ralph was great, though. He was one of the good characters. Unfortunately, he got fired, but he was still a good character, though, and I guess we'll miss him, so yeah. Now, as for Season 5, as for Cicada, all I had to show you is this clip. So yes, obviously, if you have watched Season 5 already, you'll know what I mean by that reaction to Cicada, so yeah, not really worth talking about, but still. I will tell you though, Season 5 was not really all that bad though, because I did like Reverse Flash's 2049 story, which I will do a separate video on why Reverse Flash ended up in prison at that time. It wasn't really explained too well, so I'm gonna do that in a separate video, not for this one, but yeah. I also did like Nora West Allen. I know many people found her character annoying, but I actually enjoyed the character, so yeah. Season 5 was okay. It could have been better as well, definitely with Cicada. Like, the overacting of Cicada, that's all I could just say, really. It just kind of feels overly dramatic, and I just wasn't buying the acting of Cicada. And also, Cicada 2 was a little bit better, but by the time the damage is already done, so yeah. So Season 6 was boring. I mean, Bloodwork, though, I'll go ahead and talk about Bloodwork, because I guess he was okay, but I guess, however, I just really didn't get the urge to rewatch the Bloodwork storyline again. So, from what I remember though, I don't think there was any real plot holes in the storyline. It only lasted until episode 9 anyway, because his entire story, I think, was just to build up to Crisis on Infinite Earths. It was kind of like mirroring Barry's, like, desperation to survive. That's kind of what Bloodwork is trying to do as well. He wants to kind of, like, outlive death because of, he was inspired from his dead mother, I guess, and yeah, so either way, it's a pretty interesting backstory, but I guess nothing really stood out about Bloodwork. So I know people like to say that he was a return to form after Cicada, but I wouldn't really put it on the same level of Season 1 and 2 anyway. It's not bad, but nothing special, it's kind of like just there. So anyway, so we move on to the Mirror verse storyline, which is about Mirror Monarch, I believe is her name, and her name is Eva, and she was a bad villain, honestly. I guess it kind of feels like this season had no sense of direction, and although like they do have a better direction in Season 7, where they were building up to Godspeed, and also the Forces storyline was clearly there to be an extension before they start to help out for the Godspeed storyline, but still, like, at least as bad as that was, it was still more intriguing than Season 6's Mirrorverse storyline. It kind of feels like, I guess, there's really nothing stands out. Like, this is something that's lacking, really, when it comes to the future villains. It kind of feels like, look, when you have someone like Zoom or Reverse Flash, their presence really elevates, you know, the episode, but in the later seasons, the villains don't have nearly the same intensity as they used to. It kind of feels like they forgot how to write an intimidating villain. Like, take Godspeed, for example. Now, like I said before in another Season 7 video, this show usually does well when it comes to speedster villains, but unfortunately though, this doesn't anymore ring true because Godspeed, despite being a speedster villain, this was still some of the worst episodes I had ever seen, and look, I love this show before, so it's not like I enjoy hating on this show, but if I'm going to do a review video, I have to be honest, and it definitely is nowhere near. In fact, I don't think they've ever really recovered the Season 1 and 2 levels of quality ever again. Like, they came close at Season 3, but still, Savitar himself has already had a bunch of problems. So, it's not like I enjoy, like, ranting about The Flash, but I guess I just say it as it is. Now, you may have a different opinion than I do, and I'll respect that, but even now, like, I'm just to put this out there, Season 8 of The Flash releases November this year, but I'm not really holding my breath that it'll be a major improvement, but still, I could be proven wrong. I don't know the future. I'm not a time traveler, but as of right now, though, it definitely is a disappointment, and the villains themselves as well, it's like they forgot how to write good villains, and yeah, I'm just hoping whatever they have planned for Season 8, I'm hoping it is a step up, but I said the same thing after Season 6, and then Season 7 turned out to be, well, you know, so yeah. Anyway, so thank you very much for watching. That is it for this video. And as to why The Flash, Season 1 and Season 2 are still the best seasons, and at least as we near the final season, because I don't know whether Season 8 is the final season or not. Nothing is really confirmed yet, but I do know that the show is nearing its end for sure, because a lot of the good actors already left. We had Carlos Valdez. He came back for a return, but he's no longer a series regular, so he's kind of more of a recurring character now. And, you know, Tom Cavanaugh only comes back as a recurring character as well as Reverse Flash. But yeah, so the two characters have left as series regulars, and I'm just in general, it feels like they're phoning it in this season, so I guess we'll see how it goes, folks. So yeah, like I said earlier, thank you very much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Raphael out, and have a good day.